welcome to this episode of Bold Strong. Today we have Jonathan Ferguson with us. Very excited to have him. He's a survivor of very intense liver disease and had a liver transplant. And excited to share the experience and get to know him a little bit better today. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks so much.
Is it okay to call you Johnny?
Johnny works.
Johnny, Jonathan, and Johnny. So, welcome. You've had a crazy past couple of years, several years, and you've had an experience that none of us want to have or hope that we never get to experience. Oh. And it's probably changed you somewhat. So welcome. And we want to hear more about it. So diving right in, tell us the quick sure. overview.
Yeah, so I will mention right off the bat that yesterday was my first liverversary.
Oh,
so the
exciting.
Surgery was performed on June 29th of 2020. And huge celebration because of that. So the disease that I was diagnosed with was called primary sclerosing cholangitis, or PSC. Okay. And that was diagnosed in about 2010, but it was probably two or 3 years before I was actually diagnosed. I saw dozens of doctors who misdiagnosed me and was told everything from drink more milk to you have cancer. I was brought into an auditorium to actually watch a video to Tom Baker that was, you have cancer, now what?
Oh, wow.
My doctors didn't even tell me that I was going to go into this. They just said, okay, you have to be there at this time.
Wow.
It turned out that I did not have cancer, and they found out later on with many tests that it was the liver disease, which basically PSC is scarring of the liver and narrowing of the bile duct.
Right.
So nothing to do with alcohol or anything. That's a bit of a stigma behind liver diseases. Yeah. Most of them have nothing to do with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I guess, to maybe set the stage, whatever liver you had before, you don't have it now. Gone.
That is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, my gallbladder's gone as well.
Okay.
They actually, they took that out. That was filled with stones. That was kind of the first diagnosis. And they said, okay, you're going to be healed after this. And I had the biggest smile on my face when I went in for surgery. And I thought that I was going to be, I had multiple horrible gallbladder attacks. 2 a.m, laid down at the toilet. I was having panic attacks, anxiety, not knowing what was going on with my body, having to get rushed to the hospital, and then thinking that I was, overdosing on drugs because of how I was acting. But it was just gallbladder attacks plus this unknown disease that I had. So that happened many, many times.
Yeah. So leading into this, looking back over a decade ago, so a dozen years ago, you're healthy, you're traveling, you're experiencing life, and then something starts happening. Yeah. So lead us in, what's that story? So you're 12 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, I'm in my late 20s.
Yeah.
Not a care in the world, traveling the world, working holiday visas in Australia and New Zealand and the UK, Ireland. And all of a sudden just had digestive issues and acid reflux and GERD and insane heartburn that would just radiate down my shoulder. And saw so many different doctors and all these different tests, endoscopies, and your liver's fine, I was told. And at the time, I was still drinking a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of caffeine. But I knew in my head something wasn't right, because hangovers would last weeks. And the body the liver is our ultimate body's filter. And I just knew that something wasn't getting broken down. And I was having these horrible gallbladder attacks. I remember one time, on a plane, you're stuck. Most people have just that fear of flying, but then imagine having a gallbladder attack while you're on a plane and just having to go to the washroom and just kind of curling up in a ball. Wow. Many experiences like that. I had my gallbladder removed. The happiest guy at the hospital. And weeks after that, I was still feeling the same. And they finally diagnosed me with the liver disease. And I was told in 2010 that it could be I could need a transplant, a liver transplant, and that could be about 10 years away. And they were exactly right.
So what's the, just as like a curiosity, what's the 10 years? Like what's happening over 10 years people are dying, aren't they? Like, don't people die over that 10
Absolutely. And this disease, this horrible disease, PSC, it's this long, torturous disease where you can feel great and the next day just super lethargic and tired and no energy, brain fog. That was one of the huge symptoms that a lot of people don't realize is because of the liver is processing everything. And it can get clogged up. And then all of a sudden you've got this brain fog. Like to its severity, it can be like dementia. Thankfully, mine didn't get that bad. But that's one of the things that I'm regaining now is this clarity and being able to think. And that's, other than my change of appearance, the change in my mental game is increasing every day.
Yeah, and our mutual friend Trina showed me pictures of you as, they're probably the dramatic, more recent ones, but you look like an alien.
Like death.
Not human.
My eyes are just deep in my skull, and I did look pretty much like a skeleton. Yeah. And my skin was yellow, and you probably noticed I've got this vitiligo as well, which came on at the same time as the diagnosis. Our body is just incredible to know and to warn us, okay, something's not right. And it was super manageable until about 2 years ago when I entered the end-stage liver disease, and my health just really decreased, and then it just shot up everywhere.
Yeah, it must have been shocking at that point where, they're saying, hey, you're gonna need a new liver, and then, there was probably a point, I suspect, where you thought, I'm gonna beat this somehow. Did that ever come up, or where?
It made me feel like I had 10 years left to live. And I debated buying a domain name for like 10 years left. And something like that. And just because it was about living life. I always had this mental state where, okay, you have to live life to its fullest because you might not be here in 10, 8, 6 years. And I prioritized my life. I love travel. I've got a very small family, and I did a lot of travel with my parents, and just travel in general, and saw who my friends were who cared about me, and just cut out some of the riffraff.
Yeah, and then as you got into it, you realized it's more than surviving it. There needs to be a donor at some point.
Yeah.
So and then that was probably an interesting situation, and then you found a donor. So walk us through that.
That was a long process.
And I have a story about your donor too.
Okay.
You didn't know about it.
Okay.
So share your story.
I look forward to this. I do have a bit of a famous donor. I'm told that, okay, I have the most incredible doctor, first of all. And I actually, I'm a photographer. I gave him one of my images. It's in his office, and I knew as kind of a constant reminder, okay, you're looking at that, you're thinking of me. Yeah. Because I know one day I'm going to need your help. And so my health is just constantly decreasing. And he's telling me, he's warning me, there's going to come a time you're going to get on this list. And so finally the time came, and it was, I think maybe the later part of 2019. And he clipped my wings. He said, no more travel for you. I begged him one last trip just to Victoria. And I actually had this, this is to propose to my girlfriend at the time. And I had this whole thing planned out where we were going to go to Europe, and I had lived in Prague for a little bit, and I had the whole thing planned out where I was going to propose, but that was off the table. So ended up proposing in Tofino. Oh. So he let us go on that last trip, and I knew that we were about to go through something pretty deep together, and I needed to fix her in. Yeah, needed to tie her up. So, what was the
And so then as you're moving into this process of now you're going to be needing
Right.
a donor.
yeah.
It seems odd to me because I think part of the story was you get to find your own donor situation, and you get to go out there and do some marketing and emails, and you blitz the market and find your own donor. BYOD.
It is. You're really kind of left on your own
Yeah.
a little bit, and it's amazing. Now I'm being used as a bit of an example in certain transplant groups around Canada as to what to do, because I looked at it as a marketing thing as well, right? You're
Right.
What are you going to do, right, when you're dying? So I actually I was contacted by billboard companies. I
Right.
got on the news, got on some radio, and just got my story out there. And at the same time was wooing friends and family, and oh, it's not going to be that bad. You can save my life. And there's also not just the so you can there's two options for a donor. First of all is the living donor, which many might not know that the liver regenerates. So you can get 50% or 75% of somebody's healthy liver, and both will regenerate within a few months.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's the only organ that does that. So the second option is a cadaver liver. So this is when you fill out your donor card, and the circumstances have to be like serendipitous for this. Like the person has to pass in the hospital. They have to be on life support. It's not, you always think to yourself, it's somebody who got in a car accident and they still have to be living and then be brought, to the hospital and be connected to a machine so they can get that living organ out.
Right.
So I was actually first called for a cadaver liver, and you get called like that day.
Right.
And so we had bags packed, and my fiance and I were ready to go. We get the call. We have a liver for you. Tears of joy. We jump in the car. We drive to Edmonton. At this time, COVID is at its it's at its first wave. My fiance can't even come in the hospital with me. So it's like that. I said, let's look at this as an airport goodbye, which we'd done many times when I've gone traveling. So I had my suitcase and I kissed her goodbye and went in the hospital. They did some blood tests on me, and then I got a call from, they said there's a phone call for you. And it turned out it was one of the doctors, one of the surgeons, and she said, sorry, this liver won't work. It's not healthy enough.
Wow.
So we actually drove back to Calgary that
Wow.
night. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's crazy.
Yeah. That was heartbreaking.
Yeah. No kidding.
Because with getting a cadaver liver, then you get all the bells and whistles with it.
Yeah.
You get the bile ducts.
Right.
You get all those things. Where a living donor, which is what I ended up getting, they had to kind of MacGyver the bile ducts and take some intestines and some of his, because mine were all shot, my bile ducts, and that's where I've had some issues post the transplant.
Wow. Yeah. So I'll give you my my part of the story was, obviously when someone's friend is sick and dying, everyone's emotions start to get peaked. And Trina and I were talking one time about how sick you were, and she kind of broke down and got into the, I think I'm gonna give him part of my liver, and she's like, but I'm just scared, and I don't want to die, I have kids, and it's like, Trina, and I guess I didn't know you, so I'm like, oh, you think through this.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who. He had donated part of his liver to his father, and it was very tough. And it took, I think it was probably, I've known him for years, and he still has issues. And there's small things that he's had to deal with. He actually went into a sepsis sort of situation, and he died just a few years ago, and they had to revive him, and it was all. As a product of being a donor, not even having the disease, but being a donor. And then here comes in Trina, kind of with tears in her eyes, thinking, I got to save my friend. This is one of my best friends, and I can't let him die. And I was like, whoa. this is outside my pay grade by a long ways. So it's, but then anyways, so and that Trina wasn't your donor.
Yeah.
You had a donor.
And that's the thing. You have to also be similar in size.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's where
really?
that's where Trina, who is a petite woman, it just wasn't going to be the right fit. And I did have a few other people. One unbelievable, kind of a stranger, but there's also a bit of a family connection in history. But he's an ambulance worker in northern Alberta, and he contacted me and he said, "I'm going to be your donor," and he was like pumped for it.
Yeah.
And I just it turns out that his wife's name is the same as mine, and there was a lot of things that kind of pointed to, and this was even before the cadaver thing, and he did all the tests and he got to the last test, and we're talking like CT scans, MRIs, X-rays, blood tests, everything, multiple trips to the hospital. And it turned out that he has like a unique set of bile ducts.
Oh no!
So he couldn't donate.
Wow, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, and I think Joanna, were you and I talking about this? Where someone's spouse was this us talking about this? No. Oh, well, it was maybe as recently as yesterday. I heard this story of. That's what it was. It was these two guys. They were friends, and they both had liver disease. And then, but their spouse wasn't, suited for them. But then later, as the wives were talking, it was like, "Oh, your husband has it too, and so does mine." And then they ended up giving the other spouse, so it was just a cross.
Yeah.
And they saved each other's spouses. Which great story.
Unbelievable.
And it was that was fairly recent.
There's certainly in the transplant world, that's pretty commonplace.
Yeah.
More so in Ontario.
Okay.
Where they do a lot more than we do here, but like a lot specifically with kidneys, where it's like, okay, I'll donate to your person if you donate to mine, or a stranger can be.
Right.
Wow. My donor turned out to be the closest person to me, really. If you're looking for if you drive a Toyota and you're looking for a part for your car, you're not going to go with a knockoff. You want the real deal.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be my brother.
Right. It's exciting.
This would seem like the obvious choice, but like I said before, he could just fail one of these tests. Things aren't right. He's a filmmaker, so he works abroad for 6 months of the year. So with COVID, that was kind of a tiny positive piece that COVID brought, that he was stuck at home in Montreal.
Oh, wow.
He lives in Montreal with his family, and first his wife was totally on board. Yeah, you definitely have to do this. You have to save your brother's life. And then it was the opposite. There's no chance you're doing this. I need you here. And wow. I totally understood.
Yeah.
And it was flip-flop back and forth, and then my brother had to fly out to Edmonton, and which was surreal that we were going through these tests together now. And at the same time, I had a good friend who's about my size in Calgary that was also doing the testing leading up, just in case something wasn't. Backup. Always good to have a backup liver, even now.
That's right.
Knock on wood.
So should we start? Is this a message you're saying we should start polling our friends to see who suits us?
Yeah, totally.
For
what
all
blood
of our
type
organs.
Are you?
Get some notes on our friends.
That's the big thing too. You have to be the same blood type.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. Which you said you were.
I don't even know at this point.
And that was the thing. When I was asking my friends, they had no clue.
Yeah, right.
What blood types are your kids? I don't know. Well, you should, right?
Yeah.
So I have an amazing friend who also, even though he's got kids and he's going through divorce actually at the time, and with COVID and his company, things are, going in a different direction. He stepped up and he said, "Okay, I'm going to do this for you." And my brother's going through the test, so it turns out they're both matches.
Oh, wow.
They're both matches, family, and I find out now why 75% or something like that of donors are family, because it's such an intense thing to go through. So it's amazing that it did turn out the way that it should, but it was canceled many times with COVID. My brother being in Montreal, he was told, nope, it's not going to be you, many times. But in the back of his mind, he knew. And I said, no, I'm sorry. Maybe in another life, but this won't be you. So now it's my friend in Calgary.
Right.
And he's psyched himself up, and his mom's going to come in to look after the kids, and he's having sleepless nights, and he's, the stress is getting to him. And the flights were not allowed to travel within Canada, so my brother's stuck in Montreal. He's thinking, okay, well, do I drive out? Do I drive out here? But they made the decisions on the transplant side in Edmonton. Okay, it's not going to be you. It's now going to be.
Why was it not going to be him? Like, what was the downside? Was it the?
It was just at that point during COVID, it was just easier to have a local donor.
Right.
They just didn't know if we were going to be able to travel, and you think about the mental aspects with the families and everything like that.
Sure.
To have somebody closer, so it was him, and they actually called. They canceled surgeries at this point, and then they just opened them up, and my friend gets a call. And he's actually working. So the call from the transplant team goes to his voicemail. This is my friend in Calgary. He doesn't get it. So the next call is to my brother.
Okay.
And they say, okay, Daniel, we have a date. It's in 9 days. Will you be the donor? And my brother's been told, nope, it's not you. And like, his wife is like at the neighbors at the pool or something like this. The kids are playing in the backyard. He's like, holy shit. Can I talk this over with my wife? They say no. They say no. They said,
no callbacks. This is it.
We need an answer right now. We just had a date open up. And they were going, they were doing children first that needed transplants. And they had this date on June 29th. And he said, well, what about this? What about the other donor? We tried to call him. He didn't pick up the phone.
Didn't pick up.
My brother, I'm sure, is cursing him. But all along, he just thought he never let go that it was going to be him. So he said, yes, I'll be there. They said you need to be in Edmonton in like 5 days.
Wow.
So I met him in Edmonton.
Boom.
And we got some photos together.
So from the just to look at the surgery itself and you have a large certain incision.
Yep.
Is the same for him, or what's it like on the donor side?
So I have the Mercedes symbol.
Yeah.
He has the Lexus. So it's just the L. Now they do this a little bit differently. Like if surgeons were to see this, they might say, "Oh, you had that done in Alberta."
Oh, really? Okay.
Where apparently in Ontario, they do a bit of a smaller incision. Where my liver was so enormous, so scarred, so beaten up that there's no way it could have fit. My incision goes around my body pretty much on the right side. So
So that's crazy. So the donor, your brother, has a smaller incision, but it still cuts through the abdominal wall and muscular wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how much did they take on him?
67%.
Okay. Yeah. So 2/3 essentially.
So the liver's two lobes. So I got the big one.
Okay.
And you see the liver and it kind of is shaped like this. Mine is more like a blob now.
And so now a year later, how is he doing?
We both had complications.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes with the territory. But a year later, he's back to running, swimming, doing everything he loved, getting back into shape. So he's pretty much, 90% right now.
So what's the complications that happen on the donor side? Is it all related to the surgeries or is it beyond that?
Yeah, so I put my brother in touch with many different people before, and he heard all the stories from, I was swimming 2 days later, I was skateboarding 2 days later, to I still can't. My abdomen's still numb a year after. So he heard all the different stories.
Right.
But no one's ever died from a transplant surgery. So he was mentally prepared for whatever happened. It was certainly more difficult than he was expecting. But he has no regrets. We talk about it. We're closer than we've ever been now. And we just talked on my liveversary. We just talked about seeing each other the morning of and what was going through our minds. And then they started the surgery on him first, and then I went under soon after. But with what happened with him, because they kind of tie off all the internal strings and whatnot at the different corners. So at the top of the vertical incision and at both sides, the far sides of the horizontal, they kind of tie it off in a ball, the string or whatever medical equipment they're using. And his just wasn't closing at the very top. So he kind of had this little like pocket that just wasn't healing. So he actually had to go for plastic surgery.
Oh, wow.
And it was very tough because he was in Montreal. If he was here, it would be a different story. But he was actually the first donor in Quebec that had given to somebody in Alberta.
Oh, wow. Really?
So, unfortunately, it was a bit of a guinea pig there. And, a few unfortunate things there. But, he's...
Surprising.
We talked all the time, and I remember being in the hospital, one of, like, the best memories, and I had given him, like, I gave him all these sweatpants and stretchy pants and shoes to wear in the hospital. He wasn't prepared for anything. Yeah. And when I was in the hospital bed a couple days after surgery, to see those shoes behind the curtain and for him to come in, like, and just like, and I can't move, right? I'm attached to many different things, and the embrace afterwards. Wow. We made it, right?
Yeah. Amazing. Cool. So so as the donor, your brother, he's up on his feet quicker than you.
Oh, yeah.
Because you would have had, a couple of years worth of deterioration, whereas he's healthy and leading into it. So
yeah, but one of the most incredible things was that he was able to feel how I was feeling before with sensitivities towards car emissions.
Oh, wow.
Cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
And he had heard me, and of course all my friends have, maybe not complaining about, but certainly being affected by. Like, I'd go over to friends' houses, and towards the end there, even using an oven would affect me. Having the fireplace on, or even just the pilot on. Yeah. When those forest fires, we had those forest fires a few years ago, that was a nightmare scenario for me. I had air purifiers on both sides of me, and couldn't have outside air coming in, basically. And in certain travels to different countries, when I was in China and Cairo, and I was wearing masks way before 10 years ago. Yeah. Wow. Things that I had to find out the hard way, because
so it's just you're not filtering any of the toxins that are around you.
Yeah. Wow. And so that interesting. That leads to difficulty breathing, tightness of the chest, like absolute fogginess, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right. Because it's the air you're breathing.
Right. Wow. So, and like, this is probably it's kind of the crazy thing to ask, but you're going through this whole process is probably terrible. It's miserable. Was there anything funny along the way? Like, was there anything that brought joy to you through this process?
Well, I'm the kind of person that stays as positive as possible. And you always have to look at the funny side of things, of course. When I went into the surgery, I asked the surgeon, who it was his 45th year performing surgeries, and I was his 850th.
Wow. 45 years?
45 years, and he actually just retired. I was his last. I don't know if that's a good thing, but he was forced. No. But incredible guy. Shout out to Dr. Kniedemann, and congratulations on your retirement. But I asked him before I was going under, And again, I had a huge smile on my face going into this thing, thinking, okay, I'm going to be cured. Hopefully, this is the time. And I said, I gave him, I was going to say I gave him my camera, but I guess I wouldn't have had my camera there. I just said to him, I'm sure somebody here has a camera. Take a photo. Take a photo when I'm under. And, I'm a photographer. No matter how gory this is, I want to see it.
Yeah.
And so I have this photo now, this priceless photo that I should really make T-shirts of.
Yeah.
That of my old liver.
Right.
And it's the most enormous thing. It looks like a large baby. And
Wow.
It's like surgical gloves, and it's huge.
Wow.
And when I look at photos of myself before, it's a little bit larger. But I show it to friends like it is a child.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people want to see this. Like, I was at my dentist the other day, and the hygienist, I said, do you want to see it? And she says, she like almost looks around like it's criminal. Like,
let's do this.
Yeah, let's see it. and I always joke around. I show it to people, and I say, can you believe they let me take this? and at first they're like, yeah, like, wow.
You got to take it home?
Yeah, like, imagine, yeah, exactly. I made a necklace. I've got some earrings for you. And of course, everyone always sends me the liver jokes, right?
Yeah.
So I love it. I love it, of course.
My mom, she had a gallbladder stones and so long ago, and they let her take them home. And we always thought it was more, it was kind of macabre, but we'd be able to take the little bottle and
oh my gosh.
these little tiny.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was like for me. I did this weird kind of cleanse when I had gallstones. I researched how to get rid of these naturally, and it was like this whole olive oil, apple juice, acidic kind of cleanse, and I passed a whole bunch.
Oh yeah.
And my roommate at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, you got to come see this. And he was just looking at
You were passing, like what? You were passing gallstones?
like huge, like the color of
what?
this. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. And I've talked to doctors about this, and some of them don't quite, but there's no explanation because there was like 30 in multiple movements.
Wow.
Like 30 big. But that obviously I don't condone doing that or anything. And I still needed the gallbladder removal. But
wow.
Yeah, it was just
full. I passed several years ago. I passed a couple. I had a couple stones that were in my bladder, and they passed through. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It was terrible.
Yeah. So you can imagine after transplant, basically the body is going through all these changes, and like I at first. Speaking of movements, at first you cannot have a movement to save your life.
Yeah.
And my brother and I still talk about these things, and like even just tasting, like my brother has these nightmares of like them taking his tray of food away, like it's like after like a week of not eating.
Yeah.
And like a tuna salad sandwich is like the best thing in the world, or like a muffin, and they take it away, and him like freaking out. How could you? I haven't had. Yeah. But I had horrific. Not going, and then I couldn't. I had a second surgery after, 10 days after my transplant. They actually told me that I was going to be sent home, and then I woke up in the middle of the night having like a drug-induced nightmare, and I saw on the board NPO, and I called in the nurse, and they said, "Oh yeah, you're having a second surgery, nothing to eat or drink." Oh. So
perfect.
Yeah, going from being sent home, and then after the second surgery, I had no control of my bowels after that.
Wow.
And at the same time, I'm doing rehab, and I'm like down on the exercise bike,
right?
And I'm like, oh geez, like I gotta head up to the, and there was you think to yourself, am I ever gonna feel better?
Right.
Like how is this permanent?
Yeah.
And you constantly go through that, and you just have to appreciate the small wins along the way.
Yeah. So when you look at like the process of, the overall process, and, was it, I don't know if you would know, is it different if you were in the US? Like how it would play out? Like, and assuming, you had insurance and it's going to get paid for, but like, would they have said it's 10 years in the States as well?
I could see it. It depends what kind of plan you have. And I'm not sure, to be honest, but I could see it being, I'm sure you could find a liver.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you needed it, you could.
Yeah, because you always hear nightmares out of the U.S. And it's like,
I wouldn't want to. I couldn't guess how much a liver would be.
Yeah, because you were saying that you had like 20 doctors in your room and 20 doctors in your brother's room, and then there was that whole years of build-up into it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the cost would have been,
Oh.
like, have you ever, it would be interesting to find out.
Well, funny thing is my brother was actually sent bills.
Oh, no.
Mistakenly. And we're talking like, things that we take for granted, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like certain meals, like getting charged for every single thing you can imagine in the States.
Yeah.
Oh, every shot, every medicine, everything getting charged for. So he got these.
Yeah.
And he was told, being the guinea pig from the first person from Quebec, it was just this, lines were crossed.
Right.
And he's like recovering, and he's getting these bills for thousands of dollars. Like, what the heck's going on?
But it didn't say please pay, did it? Please pay, or otherwise we're going to reverse whatever we did.
Yeah. Oh, well, he was told at first, like, he was told that he had to pay, and then he talked to somebody else.
Wow, really?
Like, oh, actually, we'll take care of that. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's got this like open wound still, and it sucks. I couldn't see him, like not being. Yeah. It
was actually this is a slightly political side of this, was that there, over the years there's always been this group of people that have tried to get the bills for surgeries and to see what the actual costs are, to see what's getting billed through the healthcare system, but there's a big reluctance, so no one wants to show it. So they're big numbers, very big.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And even the whole opt-out for donors,
right.
That's a big deal. It's amazing. In Nova Scotia, they have that, and I think
is that not in Alberta now? Like, what's?
I don't think so yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but in Nova Scotia, I think it's like very small numbers that have opted out, like 5%.
Really?
Or something, yeah.
Wow. That would change things, wouldn't it? Like, that would be a game changer.
Completely, and because the thing is, the chances of you actually being a donor when you fill out that thing is so slim.
Right.
But obviously, the more people that have it, you can take it with you.
Yeah, and it just increases the likelihood that you're going to be able to do something.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like the cadaver, if I had a healthy cadaver liver, would that have been better?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Wow. How many liver transplants are there per year in Canada? Do you know? Like, is that a known it must be.
It
known.
is.
I don't know if
you
know it.
I do have the, if you go to loveandsurvive.com, Love and Survive, that's my whole story. Okay. And I do have some stats on there, but it's like, it's low. There's more kidney transplants.
Okay.
And it seems like that's, that's obviously a difficult thing, but that's a bit easier of a recovery from from seeing people at, I've got a crazy story for you actually. You can imagine when you come out of the transplant, you're in a room, you're sharing a room with people with unbelievable stories. Sure. And I was having a rough go the first few weeks. Finally, I got transferred to a room, and I was at the window side. It was the first time I had a window, and it's like the light shone, right? And it was room like 22, bed 2, and my birthday's on the 22nd. Always lucky number 2. Right. A little bit superstitious there, and I got this. I was like, okay, this is when things transform. And my roommate was an Indian woman who had a double lung transplant.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And she was a very small woman, and she'd been waiting like 20 years or something.
Oh my goodness!
And we got to talking, and I asked her, "Where do you know where they came from? Where did your lungs come from?" And she said, "Alaska." A young girl in Alaska, and you can imagine the fresh air, these new lungs, and she said, now it's my dream to go to Alaska and bring these lungs, these lungs home, as well as she wanted to go back to India and visit friends that she hadn't for so long, but to see people change from day to day, right? Not being able to breathe, and then in that ward there in Edmonton, 3G2, I think it is, there's crazy things going on. You can imagine, people's lives being every day, just it's livers
Yeah.
hearts and lungs.
Do you ever,
kidneys.
like, it was something that we were talking about earlier. Do you ever kind of like in those, quiet moments and you sit and think, there's someone else's stuff's in me? Oh, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have any, like, my stuff's my stuff.
Yeah.
But you have someone else's stuff in you now.
My brother's birthday is June 13th. So now that's my liver's birthday. So I have an extra birthday now, and it's 6 years older than me. That's weird to think.
Yeah.
That there's a part of my body that's 6 years older.
Yeah.
It's it's crazy. I think about it every day, and just the science and technology that we have to do something like that. And maybe one day we'll be able to get fitted for new parts, and and you won't need a human to sacrifice.
Right. Is a liver, maybe just kind of educate me, like, is a liver necessarily has to come from a human? It has to come from, like, has to be donor matched? It has, like, is there?
Yeah.
But there's other organs that aren't quite as particular. Why is the liver unique? What's unique about it?
I think just what it does, how it's the body's filter, and how I've learned that as soon as it starts to not function properly, and it can function like up to, like, I think mine was running on like 20-25% or something.
Yeah.
Functionality. But you need a match with blood and many other size matters with the liver.
Yeah.
And it's definitely the most underrated. With kidneys, what I found was crazy was they actually leave the old kidneys in the body.
Really?
When they do a transplant, and they just kind of shrivel up like grapes.
No
and
way.
Just stay in there. Yeah.
Really?
So there's people that have like 4 kidneys or something.
Wow.
Like, nuts.
Wow. That's bizarre. And so, like, I know, and I don't know which organs they are, but I know that there's, they've done some things where you can use even other species, a valve, or you can have, like, but that's not the liver.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wake up and they say, we went to the zoo and we did some matching. I'm like, and then I started getting cravings for different things. Yeah, that's the other thing is actually, I said to my brother, what cravings do you usually have?
Yeah.
And if I'm one guy that my brother shared a room with, he got an allergy through transplant.
Oh, wow.
There was a medication that he was never allergic to, but his donor was. And he had an allergic reaction.
And that was a
to
liver.
that.
It was a liver or kidney?
I believe it was a liver, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It can change your personality.
Yeah. Wow. So what's it been, you're a year out, so how's life changed, improved? Obviously, you're not spending every day in the hospital anymore.
Yeah. Well, I was back in the hospital in January of this year. I kept having these pesky infections, even after transplant, where I'd get antibiotics for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And it was just because my bile ducts were too narrow.
Oh, okay.
So they needed to do something about that. They put in a biliary drain to widen the ducts. Unfortunately, 2 different doctors made 2 errors.
Oh.
And caused a fistula, a leak, and it went unnoticed. So bile and fluid flooded my entire right side, and my lung collapsed.
Oh,
and
no.
I was sent home.
Yeah.
Sent home, so I was at home and just couldn't breathe.
Wow.
I had to go back to the hospital, and was close to dying. But there was nights where they would like plunge like a harpoon of a needle and just extract liters of bile.
What? Holy smokes.
I have
just
these,
out of the cavity, just out of the...
Yeah, like they would even do it through my back. And
really?
I was on the and so I'm recovering still from that.
Wow.
Breathing in, and I have these some pains on the right side. I imagine being my new liver and my lung that's trying to spread out, kind of fighting over real estate. But yeah, that was the only time. I was always positive through everything.
Yeah.
I never questioned why me for any of this. But that was the time when there was just so much pain.
Yeah.
And that everyone was scared. You could when you see it in the doctor's eyes, when you see it in the nurse's eyes, I was pretty scared at that point.
Wow,
And
that's terrible. You get that far along in the process, and then it's like, and that's gonna put you down.
Well, I was 150 pounds after transplant. After I lost the the fluid weight, 150 pounds, and then I put on 35 pounds. And then, and we're talking like
fluid.
No, that was that was of weight after.
Okay.
Like within a few months, but fluid, yeah. There's stories of like 100 pounds of fluid after. I met a girl who, she was a tiny girl, and she put on like basically her entire body weight again in fluid.
Wow.
But after I did lose that fluid, everything's swelling up, but. And you're trying to walk again. You're walking, you're doing laps around these units, and it's hard as hell. Oh my God. And you're watching everyone do it, and everyone's going through the same thing. Some people are a day ahead, and they told me that the faster that you can get up and walk,
right,
after the surgery, the better off you're going to be. You hear these myths.
Sure.
So I was in ICU like the day after transplant, and I said, I want to get up.
Right. Yeah.
I want to go. And I said, "Are you sure? Like,
sure.
This just happened." And I said, "Yep, I want to do it."
Give me the keys to the car. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I had a nurse on both sides, and it was. I'm sure I was on pain meds and whatever, but it was horrific.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to do it, and I walked to the end of the hall and came back, and I remember like I had to move from the ICU. I was in the burn unit for a bit just because that's where they had to put me, and I just remember a male nurse carrying me into the other room.
Wow.
But just
was like COVID obviously exists and we're dealing with it. It must have, you had some impact from COVID because it would impacted your donor.
Yep.
But then what else was impacting from COVID? What else has come up because of that?
The cancellations that happened, having outbreaks in the hospital in the units that I'm in. When that happens, where a nurse that maybe I'd had a few days ago had it, having no guests in. Luckily, when I had the transplant, I was able to have one guest in. But when I was in the hospital in February, no guests. I didn't at that point. I basically didn't leave my bed.
Yeah.
When my lung collapsed, I didn't shower for a month.
Wow.
They just had to bathe me in bed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't talk for about a week.
Really?
I was on oxygen for almost a month.
Right?
And not having somebody, your loved one, in the room, and barely being able to talk to them on the phone, and you're just going through this whole thing mentally yourself. Thankfully, unbelievable nurses and people that like they know me at the hospital here. Which is
that's great. So did you ever want to give up at some point? Like I've known people that have been sick, and mostly they've been older, and then they just think, "It's enough. Enough's enough. I'm putting my family through stuff. I don't need to do this." Did you ever get there?
Fuck no.
Yeah.
No
good.
chance.
That's
no
good.
chance. Always positive. I've been so lucky to have been able to travel, and as a photographer. Those images that I have in my mind that I've looked at millions of times, and I can close my eyes and just picture anywhere that I've been. Mm-hmm. I've got an incredible memory, thankfully, and I can. That's what got me through everything.
Right.
Just thinking about those moments and what I've experienced, and wanting to have more of that. Just that hunger, and wanting to experience that with my new wife.
Yeah.
And see that next chapter in life.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's a good attitude, I guess. You need to be there.
Yeah. There was definitely some down times where I'm sure I didn't laugh or smile, and just in constant discomfort, like the discomfort over the last 12 years.
Sure.
Like nobody knows that kind of it's
wow. I've had a couple occasions in life that have been, like I'm 2 seconds from being a pancake, and then you. It's interesting what goes through your brain at that second. It's like, this is it. I'm in someone else's hands at this point.
Yeah.
That's
It
those
changes
are
you.
interesting experiences.
Everyone needs to go through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
People that take life for granted or
Yeah.
don't see how others are living in the world and don't have, like, thank God that I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
To have this liver disease in another country, you're gone.
Oh, you'd be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'd have left you back there.
Yeah. This guy's not important. We've got more.
We got lots of this guy.
Yeah.
So you've done some neat things since, and you're what do we say? You're pushing for there to be more donors. You're pushing for tell us about kind of the advocacy at this point. And
I will for the rest of my life be an advocate for organ donor awareness. This is something that most people don't know, that the liver can regenerate, or that you have 2 kidneys and you can give one away and be fine. And not just that, but just giving blood and other things that you can give. It changes people's lives.
Right.
And you unfortunately, with the human condition, we don't really, unless it affects us personally, we kind of just brush it off.
Right.
But for those selfless people that have done this in their lives, it can be such a rewarding thing.
Right. Yeah. And you've been working on a bit of a project to raise money and awareness. Tell us about that.
So I've just started getting back to work a little bit as well as a photographer. My company is Von der Rush Photography. That's been amazing to get back to work and to do the camera lunges and to carry my heavy bag again, come home and just pass out.
Right.
Out of exhaustion, but like the best kind of exhaustion. And to see people, clients that haven't seen me in a year.
Right.
And they're like, oh my God, like, you don't look like death anymore.
Yeah.
So a new project that I'm so thrilled to be a part of, and we just launched yesterday to coincide with my liverversary, and it's called Passport Puzzles. And so we're taking my travel photos and putting them into puzzles, and partial proceeds go to organ donor awareness.
Right. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So we'll link that up. So
Cool.
then we'll put that out there. So that's awesome. And there are pictures from everywhere.
Yeah, we've got right
around
now.
the world.
We've got 6. And there's Morocco, Portugal, Mexico, Montenegro. Yeah, amazing.
A lot of people want to take a picture of me and make it a puzzle.
Is that true?
Only the big part.
Yeah, you'll constantly be tearing it up. Oops, I missed a piece.
Yeah, or the pieces they're all the same, and you can just put them wherever you want. That'd actually be pretty funny. We could probably sell a few of those. So, well, that's exciting. And then, so that's just kicking off. You have a website for that? What's the website for that?
It's passportpuzzles.com.
Passportpuzzles.com. Okay, we'll link that up at the bottom, and we'll put some pictures up of that as well. So what other important messages do you have? If we're into donor awareness, what's the message? What do you want to share with people that you can want to put out there?
Yeah, well, it's amazing. Just I never thought that just by living my life that people would send me messages and say that I've inspired them or given them strength. But I get these messages every few days, and it's the greatest thing. It makes my day.
Right.
And if I can help people, they see my positivity, and it wasn't always that way, that's for sure. But you have to just go to your happy place, and you have to just work through it, and you think of your future. You go give blood.
Yeah.
And research giving more, but even just the smallest thing is becoming an organ donor.
Right.
Is huge, and you could save a life, and make your family incredibly proud. It could be your ultimate legacy in life.
Right. Yeah, that's exciting. And also as part of your life, are you getting married?
Yeah.
You didn't really finish the story. You said you were going to.
I know. It's with COVID and everything. It's we wanted to next year, but it's probably going to be the year
Yeah.
after. We want to do something overseas. So
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
maybe, you know.
I was gonna come until you said that.
Oh yeah. You know, I gotta get more photos for the puzzles. So
That's right.
it's two birds, one stone.
Yeah, that's exciting. So sometime next year, possibly.
Yeah, next year, maybe the next year.
And what's your photography business? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's called Vonderush, VONDERUSCH,
Okay.
vonderush.com, which is an old family name. And yeah, I do a lot of real estate and corporate events, yeah, things like that.
Organs.
Yep, shooting organs. I actually found out that, did you know that hospitals actually have a photographer on
No
site?
way. Is that right?
Yeah. Just
Wow.
in case there's something like super weird
Yeah.
that they haven't seen before. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need this guy here. Or
Wow.
unfortunately, other sides of things when people pass.
Yeah,
and things
absolutely.
Like that.
So
Yeah.
you have to document.
I don't know if I'd like that job, but well, I'd rather shoot in faraway lands.
Yeah. Wow, that's exciting. Well, listen, I super appreciate you being here. It's I feel like I've known you for a long time, although I've only met you today.
Yeah.
And so Trina's shared a bit of your journey as you've gone through it, and I'm glad you were able to be alive to come to our show. It would have been uncomfortable if you hadn't made it.
No, it would have been
booked you
super
in
dull.
and-
Really dull.
So but
Very
that's great.
one-sided.
So, yeah. Well, hopefully we can catch up with you as time goes by and the story evolves, and hopefully you stay healthy and
Yeah.
you make something out of it. And maybe you can get out there and promote more of that donor awareness. It'd be
Absolutely.
so
Yep,
exciting.
everyone
So,
needs to know about it, and every day is a little bit better. Still a long way to go.
Yeah.
But getting there.
It's exciting. Well, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate
Great,
it,
Great to
definitely.
have you. So
Thank
thanks
you.
very much. All right. Okay.